Welcome everyone for another episode in our Conversation of Change series. Today we have with us our amazing guest, Pallabi Ghosh, founder director at Impact and Dialogue Foundation. Pallabi Ghosh is an anti-trafficking activist and the founder director of Impact and Dialogue Foundation. The organization spreads awareness in India with a particular focus on Assam and rehabilitates survivors through skilling and empowerment courses, thus enrolling them in various institutions and giving them access to livelihood. Ghosh is also the co-founder of the Anti-Slavery Collective for Generation Equality. This collective is an umbrella group of anti-trafficking civil society organizations from Asia, Africa, the Middle East, Latin America, Europe, and Caribbean. The aim of this group is to strengthen the voice of global efforts against trafficking and slavery in all forms. Ghosh has 10 years of experience as an anti-trafficking human rights activist. She has rescued 10,000 women, youth, and children from all kinds of trafficking. She now works on preventing trafficking through conducting workshops, training, and advocacy campaigns. In the last 2 years, she has reached out to 300 educational institutions, 50 social welfare departments, 5,000 police officers, and 75,000 people to bring awareness around human trafficking. A Kalinga Fellow and Global Exchange Fellow, Ghosh received a Grand Prize Digital Changemaker Award for her rescue, prevention, and rehabilitation efforts. She holds a bachelor's degree in English literature from Delhi University and a master's degree in gender studies. Welcome, Pallabi, and thanks for joining us today.
Hello. Thank you, Punima. I'm glad that you called me. In fact, I really wanted to talk to Arthan for a long time.
So great to hear that, Pallabi. With that, I would like to jump into our very first question. So what made you look at the social issue of human trafficking and work extensively to rescue and rehabilitate the survivors? And could you also talk about the work done at Impact and Dialogue Foundation?
Okay, so, the word trafficking is something that is very old for me, because I came across this word, not specifically, but an incident when I was around 12 years old. I had gone to West Bengal, and so I was roaming in the village, and I see a man in his early 50s. He was just howling and crying. So this is some place where my uncle had taken me. The man was telling me that his daughter has gone missing. So imagine, I was 12 years old, and now I'm 30 plus. So for me, it was like his daughter is missing, and it was West Bengal. And then what I did is that I was very young. I didn't know what to do. I asked him, did he go to the police station? He was like, yeah, I went to the police station, but the police told me that my daughter has ran away. So this is a stereotype that is there always, that if a girl is not there, she has run away. And then what I did, I went around the area, I started talking to people. Nobody was able to say. So now this was something very triggering for me, because, uh, cities, people don't know each other, but in villages, everybody knows everybody. So how is it possible that a young girl of 12 is missing? And then the man said that girl was of my age. I started talking to the children, I started talking to everybody. Nobody was ready to tell me anything. Finally, one child told me that it seems there is a bhaiya who comes to the village frequently, dressed in really good clothes, has a new bike, works somewhere in Delhi, and a lot of children talk to him. They are very close to him. So I was not clear. I wrote his name, because that time we didn't have mobile phones. I came back to my home, and what happened was that incident, the man crying, it kind of, left a very deep impact in my mind. I came home, I tried to figure out about this whole concept of missing children. Like, what happens to missing children? Where do they go? Now, I was very small. Slowly and gradually started talking to police officers in my area. And then, nobody, even police was not aware about this thing called trafficking. Imagine in 2000, like 2000, 2002, like who knows what is trafficking? Like people don't know what's trafficking. So what we did, I started asking them. Slowly and gradually, they told me about something known as begging. He said that children, those who go missing, are put in for begging, he told me. So that was the first. Then I went to Nelly. Nelly is a place in Assam where there had been a huge massacre. There I got to know about children who are lifted from their families to be made as armed soldiers. So that's how it started. first begging, then child soldiers, then slowly one by one I got to know. Then I started doing extensive research. I started reading up. That's how I got to know that there is something which is being like active since years. It's a billion-dollar industry, really big people involved. There's a lot of money, and that's how I figured it out. There is something so big actually happening, and it's impossible to to stop it. So that was how this work started. Then I studied. I uh, wanted to be an anti-trafficking activist. It was not possible. I started writing to a lot of people. Finally, I got connected to this organization through which I worked with them for 6 years. I started doing rescue operations. But again, they wanted to hire me as a research officer because my entire experience was about research. But one day, what happened? One of their like rescue person was not there. So I ended up going to a rescue operations, and then it didn't stop. So I worked there for 6 years, and then I started working with individual people. One thing a lot of people don't know is that I don't do rescue operations only with NGOs. I do rescue operations with police. I do rescue operations with other different law enforcement agencies. There's a lot of privacy issues, so I don't mention about them. But there are people there, like I have worked with all the stakeholders when you talk about trafficking, and that is one of the main reason I know all the aspects of trafficking.
We've all heard stories like this, and it's really inspiring to know that you've been actually working on ground. Thank you so much for sharing that. With that, could you also expand a little bit on the work done at Impact and Dialogue Foundation?
Okay, so the reason what happened was that I rescued many people. So I did not know, okay, that I've rescued so many people. That is because of the FIR and other details I got to know about it. But the reason I started the organization was I felt, most of the organizations in India, or most of us, want to train the trained. Like we always want to work with activists, always want to work with social workers, IPS officers. We don't want to work with people, those who are suffering. Like for example, now the reason my organization is based in Delhi and the focus of work is in the source areas is because the people, that is the group of people we need to cater to. Everybody wants to work in Delhi, Bombay. No, it's not possible to prevent a crime if you work there. So that is one of the main reason I work in extreme borders like Naxalite areas, flood affected areas, tea gardens, porous borders like Bhutan border, Bangladesh border. And I talk to individual people. The work that Impact and Dialogue Foundation does, it is talking to people. One of the main, and when you talk about advocacy and training, we don't wait for a podium because it's impossible to arrange a podium. One thing is that I go and knock at their door. There have been multiple times when these people have actually stopped me in the sense that you can't enter a house. Why are you entering? So it was like really difficult for me. But what I did is that I started getting cues. First of all, I used to go to their house. I tell them, give me a glass of water. Once they did it, I was like, so how are you? How are you doing? That's how, I used to modify the conversation. So what I do is that I do, foot to foot, say training, like talking to people. Every day I make sure to talk to at least 5 people, whether it's online, whether it's phone. So I want to create the triple of effect. When one will know, 10 will know. When 10 will know, 100 will know. Because see, the thing is that the people in the ground should know. There is no point telling people who already know. Started talking to MNCs, multinational companies, engineers. They don't know what is trafficking. Started talking to doctors. For example, I remember when I used to go for my medical examination of my survivors, the doctors did not know. When I say this girl has been rescued from red light area, you know what the doctor said? The doctor used to say that, oh, traffic signal. So the problem is that you can't blame them. That is one of the main work that we do in IDF, where we don't see the category of people. Our objective is to train and educate the last person who is in the border, who doesn't have access to anything.
That's really great, Pallabi. And it's really, I mean, this point really resonates with me that how, everyone actually wants to work in the metropolitan cities and no one actually wants to work at the areas that you've mentioned. And that makes a lot of sense actually. And the work that you've been doing, going on ground and, helping the word reach out to people, to masses about something, something like anti-trafficking. Everyone should know about it and be aware about it. That's really great to hear. Thanks for sharing that, Pallavi. With that, I would like to ask So there are several studies pointed out that climate change results in the migration of youth for better livelihood. How does this displacement result in human trafficking and also gender-based violence?
See, displacement is a big, big reason. Climate change is a very big reason. What happens, see, India as a country or any third world, fourth world country are already in the clutches of poverty and illiteracy. Poverty, illiteracy, unemployment. Now, when you talk about climate change, the reason that many people in India are trafficked are from places where there is climate change and natural disasters, like West Bengal. West Bengal is in top rank. There are so many floods. Now, you will ask me why. The reason is, just imagine I have made my house. Water is there, floods are happening, my house is getting washed away. Now, again, I don't have money, right? So what I do, I am vulnerable. And that's where the trafficker takes the opportunity. Now, of course, floods, some of the places in India are prone to floods. But for example, what is happening? I don't know if you know that there's a place in Assam, whose name is Haflong, which was completely the entire police station came underwater. So Haflong is not a, see, it's hills, but it's not a place where this much of floods will happen. It has never happened. Silchar is it's one of the most developed cities of Assam. Silchar was underwater. Why? Because most of the people are trying to make certain parts of our country commercialized and concretized. So, like Joshimath, Joshimath is collapsing. So, climate change is something, of course, there might be a lot of other issues, but the main issue is that we humans have started doing so much of renovations and changes. That is one of the main reasons so much of climate change is happening. Now, all the survivors that I'm talking about, they are victims of climate change. Displacement, of course. So, I was in Bangladesh this year in June. I was in Cox's Bazar. You will not imagine there are Rohingyas. Now people will say that why were you talking about Rohingyas being in India? But of course, Rohingyas are coming to India because their country do not identify as citizens. Now I was in Kashmir recently where girls from West Bengal are trafficked and sold off. So what happens in Kashmir? There is this concept of giving dowry, which is known as meher. So if a Kashmiri man marries a Kashmiri girl, he has to give a huge meher, huge dowry. So what these Kashmiri men are doing, they are getting girls from West Bengal and marrying them. And who are these girls? These girls are people, those who have faced NRC, those who are displaced, those who don't have a house. So when they don't have a house, and most important, documents. Imagine I'm from West Bengal, my house is not there, my name is not in the Aadhaar, I don't have documents, and I'm not educated also. So anybody can take advantage of me. So displacement, migration is one of the, along with natural calamities, are the main reason for, I will say that if you ask me out of my experience, 75% of the cases that I've seen are due to climate change, displacement, and migration. So it's huge. It's really huge.
That's so true, and I mean all the things that you mentioned about the climate crisis going on, and of course we have all heard how this the climate impact, women bear the brunt of it. Like the brunt of it is always borne by this one gender. And thank you for throwing light on so many aspects, on so many geographical impacts also that the people there are facing. And with that, I would actually like to ask you that you believe that prevention is an integral part of the fight against human trafficking. Could you share your experience in educating masses, like you mentioned, across the country about the prevention of violence and anti-trafficking in G100, the Mission Million?
See, the main objective of G100 was, to create an inclusive society. So it was basically a group of people who are there to create an equal, progressive, and inclusive environment for women. So one thing that we focused was on, thought leadership. That's very important because how can thought leadership be done? It can be done only when we ensure inclusivity, when you ensure that women are safe, they have empowerment, and then the achieving, there are a lot of gender gaps, there is a lot of gender parity that happens. So the main problem that in G100 that we are trying to focus is making an inclusive environment. Now see, a lot of people that being educated means break breaking the gender gaps. No, it is a stereotype. It's in the mindset. You can't change the mindset. The whole concept of women working, like a women teacher, a women nurse, it's fine. But the moment you become an activist, but the moment you, for example, you are in a social impact sector, there are certain expectations that they want you have to fit into that category. So that is what G100 is trying to, eradicate by making everyone a part of the system. They are trying to focus on it, and it's a worldwide. There are 100 chairs. I'm a part of the anti-trafficking chair, so my focus is mostly anti-trafficking. So we are trying to eradicate the gender gaps. We are trying to educate people. We are trying to, so there are country heads, there are state heads. Under district head, there are district heads. So everybody has been given a responsibility, what they can do, how they can empower more people. So through G100, we want, we want to change the mindset that's been existing for so long. So that is one of the main thing. And we are trying to see that we'll slowly, maybe we'll reach to Earth in future. So that's what we are trying to do.
Really wonderful to hear. And this point that you mentioned about gender parity, that can be seen, in our everyday lives as well. Those are some very relevant points, and that's really amazing to hear the work that's been done under this mission as a whole. And with that, you have also mentioned that how the fight against human trafficking and gender-based violence should not be in silos, but integrated across systems. How can civil society organizations and law enforcement agencies come together and collaborate against these gender-based issues?
I think, the biggest problem is that, everybody works with the organization, with the group of people, with certain group of people who are their employees, and only with the, focus area of what the donors want or funders want. I think that is where the challenge is. We kind of, you can say, limitize ourselves to specific things. In India, there are hundreds and hundreds of NGOs. But why is it that still now the gender violence and human trafficking is not coming down? I'm not saying it will stop. No, you can't stop it. It would be wrong to say that you will stop. The reason is, you know what? I am in Delhi. I want to have a branch everywhere in India. Why not I use my resources that I have to be in Delhi and to coordinate and make a centralized system? Why not we make a centralized system and ensure that everybody who is working in whichever place can come together with their ideas? See, I have some ideas, you will have some ideas. So the problem is that people just, a lot of NGOs do not know that there are other NGOs working in the same field, in the same sector, in the same city. So that has to change. And when you talk about law enforcement, most people focus on training IPS officers. I remember the lowest level of officer that I used to train when I was working with NGOs was a sub-inspector. No, you can't train a sub-inspector. I'm not saying training a sub-inspector is wrong, but the sub-inspector already knows something. You can upgrade his skill. The person who needs to be trained is the constable. That is the person who is on the road, the volunteer, the beat people. What we do, we are looking at preventing gender-based violence or trafficking in a very, you can say in my words, it's a pastry level. Conducting programs in 5-star hotels. I have no problem with conducting a program in a 5-star hotels. But you have to understand that someone who stays, like for example, the place I work, I'll tell you, I'm in Lucknow now. The place I work, from Bangalore, I'll tell you, it takes 3.5 hours to reach half of the place. From there, it's 4 hours. From there, it's 15 hours. And from there, you have to take if the road is good, you will get a taxi or a, sumo, small. If the road is bad, you have to walk. People there are so poor, they don't wear blouses. They still have this mindset that, people are coming, they want to do conversion. They want to change your religion. For them, phones and all are like, changing mindset, like putting them, into that whole technological thing. So imagine places people who there do still eat, their indigenous food. So how do you think these people can be brought to Delhi, made to sit in a 5-star hotel? So that is where nobody wants to work. So I think the main focus should be, to train the communities who are in the fag end of the country. They don't have access to anything. Forget about a good healthcare. They don't have access to education. Most of them study, they study those tribal things or whatever that's feasible to them. So I wanted to request everybody that whatever we are doing, we are doing. Of course, if you want to open branches of your organization, it's good. But if we can actually use the resources to, upgrade other organizations, upgrade people on the ground, I think then a change can happen. Otherwise, it's impossible.
No, no, that's really true, and I totally agree with you. To actually educate people on the ground, that's the most important thing right now. As you mentioned, creating a centralized system, but also keeping in mind to reaching out to several people in the hierarchy. I mean, people at the top would already be educated and would be aware about it. But what about people who are, say, in the rural communities? How to reach out to them or how to connect with them? And I totally understand, the power of thought leadership. But of course, again, how do we reach out to those people to probably involve them in those discussions, in those forums? That's something to think about for everyone. And thank you for mentioning that, Pallavi. And with that, I also had another question, which is, a huge part of human trafficking stems from gender inequality in society, like we've been talking. So what are the ways we can engage youth in being a part of the, fight against human trafficking of young girls? And what advice would you give to young professionals who would, want to work in on this issue or in this space?
See, youth is definitely a part because it's youth only who are trafficked. You have to ensure that you talk to youth. Like, for example, I've been doing this, anti-trafficking clubs in schools. There is this village vigilante committees, but again, vigilante is not some word that I really want to use because it's more like, like stalking somebody. But what has happened, the moment I started talking to you, telling them, they started informing me. You will not believe the number of child marriages the youth have stopped, the number of traffickers, the information they have given. Some have been arrested, some have not. The youth, they track people through WhatsApp DP change. So it is very important to empower them. It is also important to tell them the product that they are wearing or the product that they're eating, where is it coming from. Like a lot of us do not know that there is something known as fast fashion. I don't know if you've heard about it. Fast fashion is fashion that wears out. You won't believe it. I did multiple raids in companies which does fast fashion. The children who work in fast fashion have burnt hands. Children who work in diamond factories do have no nails, because see, again, why are children employed in this? Because first, they're small. They will not raise their voice. Second, they can be made to work 24 hours. They won't say anything. Third, you don't have to pay them. So you will see children working in fast fashion industries, cracker factories, zari factories, brick kilns. So youth is the stage when they are very active. They're energetic. So that is the reason it's very important to engage youth. So now one of the big mission of the work that I do in IDF is, going to schools, colleges. One of the main thing, I've been reaching out to schools and colleges like crazy. Like tomorrow I'll be going to IIT Kanpur. Tomorrow I will talk on them. Now a lot of people say, what is the point of uh, talking to people in technology? Yeah, there's a point. Because if I talk to one person who is doing his course in IIT, maybe that person will talk to his friends. So one main thing is, talk to youth as much as possible. Don't give theory. I don't give theory, honestly, I'm telling you. I tell them real life incidents. Because if you tell them about Palermo Protocol or ITPA or Article 370, they won't relate to it because they are not lawyers. So one thing that most of us forget is that we can just have normal conversations in dinner tables. We can have it in maybe when we've gone for a coffee. I'm not saying that spend the entire time, but let's talk 5 minutes. Like yesterday, I'll tell you what happened. My friend was traveling by a train. Okay, he's a yoga instructor. Now he's going to reach Kolkata. He told me he has a suspicion that two girls are being trafficked from Delhi to Kolkata. I've already informed Childline. I don't know whether it's a trafficking case or not a trafficking case, but at least when these people will get down from the train, there will be somebody to intervene. Imagine, my friend did not know what is human trafficking. He just told me that is what everybody becomes alert. So that is one thing that we really do in our organization. And people, those who want to get into anti-trafficking, I would tell them that, first of all, you have to understand that this is a very tough field. It's not easy to be an anti-trafficking activist. I'm not saying that I am someone great. No, I had a very tough time. Even now I have. It's not easy. And please do not think that if you have a PhD, if you have studied from the best institutes, you will be a person on ground. There's a vast difference. Being an expert, having ground knowledge, both are very different things. Like that is one of the main reason I want my survivors to be in the policy making and decision making process, because experts are who? Experts are people who have passed from very good colleges with really good research papers, publications. But again, experts come with an opinionated mindset. That's because this is because of what they've seen, what they've. But if you get a survivor, or if you get me, again I might have opinions because I'm not a survivor. So it's very important to get people who have faced it first-hand experience. Why will we take decisions for them? Why can't they take decisions for themselves? If we're talking about empowerment, we have to make sure that we don't get people who can only speak in English. No, we have to get people who maybe do not know how to speak. So that is one important thing. And yeah, you can do research, you can spend some time on ground. I'm telling you, if anybody wants to be an anti-trafficking activist, start volunteering with organizations. If you want to volunteer with me, I'm more than happy, because I don't limit whatever I know. I try to give as much as possible. If there are things that I don't know, so I would like someone to know. So spend time, give time. Reading, writing is a different thing. Give time on ground. Stay with survivors, talk to different categories of people: law enforcement, survivors, anti-trafficking activists, NGOs. And slowly and gradually, if you're really very interested, it's easy. But then again, it's a tough life. Risk, there's a lot of risk of it. So, so it comes with a lot of, cons more than pros. So that's the thing.
No, thank you for sharing that really candid advice. And I totally agree. It's the people who have survived these atrocities. I think they should be a part of every dialogue or policy making decisions, because they are the ones who can actually, they can actually resonate and relate with it and suggest the changes that are needed. Thank you so much, Pallabi, for sharing that. And with that, I mean, it's been so wonderful hearing all of this and the work that you've been doing. But with that, I would like to come to the last question. So I know your job demands being at work 24/7. How do you work, and uh, so how do you unplug from work and seek rest, especially, with the kind of tales and with the kind of situations that you face on a daily basis? How do you unplug?
So for me, my connection with people, those who do menial jobs like cooking, cleaning, dusting, they are much important, because without them, I can't do anything. So one thing that has helped me is writing stories. One. Second is, I love to travel. I really love to travel. And every journey, I observe something. Like that day I was traveling in the train, I observed again gender discrimination. The woman was continuously taking care of the child. The man was continuously scolding the child for crying. The child was 3 months old. The child was the mother and the father's responsibility. So there also, I try to find out an angle of, gender. So I'm not saying I always find out women's thing. I try to find out the men also facing something, or the transgender or the LGBTQI. So that helps me. And I tried in between 6 months. I was teaching in a college. I tried to do raids at night and teach in a college. Trust me, I can't do anything else. My spouse is like, no, this is something that you can do. So it's better you do this. I'm not talking about only rescues, the work related with trafficking. It can be rehabilitation, it can be prevention. But I think I can't do anything else, because then, I feel I'm not doing anything. So that's how I do it.
No, that's really commendable. I mean, the work that you do, and I agree with you. Involving men in such conversations is also so important, in any gender related conversations, because they do play a huge part in this too. And no, I mean, it's really been absolutely inspiring to hear you, Pallavi. Thank you so much for being a part of this conversation.
Thank you so much, Purnima.